Okay, so this paper about the anchoring household inflation expectation when inflation is high. And in this paper, the aim of this paper, we try to understand which communication strategies effectively anchor household inflation expectation in time of high inflation. It's very much about different central bank communication strategies, and we also put in the context of inflation is high and in the Euro area and in Germany over the last few years. And this paper is joined with my co-author Lena Krieger and Amida Lu. Amida Lu is also a PhD student at our chance. And for this project, we have funding from the Bundesbank in Hanover, so it's a branch of the Bundesbank. They provide some financial support for us to run this survey experiment. So now we learn a lot about the survey and how to conduct survey and survey experiment to answer our question, right? But the important question is how we get some funding to conduct our own survey. Right? So the funding for funding this survey is mainly from two types of sources. One is from internal funding, like at the faculty or at the university or the professor. They also have their own funding to conduct research. So we can ask the funding is from, for example, in the future you work as a PhD or in master's here, but you can ask whether the university they have some funding to support for you to conduct your own research, for example, and by how much, then you can plan to think about how to run a survey or survey experiment to see some cost effect to answer our research question. And the second source of the funding here that we write our application to some institutions that they can provide some financial support. For example, we can write the application for some national research office at the country's level or at the regional level or at the Ministry of Education, for example. Or in our case here, we write our application at the Bundesbank and at the Central Bank of Germany, so that they also have some funding to support for research project. And our project here is not accepted as a Bundesbank, and that's why we have some funding to run our survey data and survey experiment. And they also provide some support, financial support for us to organize a conference and invite different people to come to our conference to present on research topic. Also regarding the central bank communication and trust with the central bank. Yeah. Just here, let's start with very quick pictures about inflation rate in the Euro areas. During this time of high inflation, so start from June 2021, inflation rate in Germany started above 2% and start with 2.2%. In June 2021, above 2%. And then inflation going up dramatically and very fast. At the peak of nearly 11% in October 2022, and they start going down, but still above 5% in the middle of 2023. So this is a special time in the Euro area because the inflation is very high in the past of nearly 80 years in the history of the Euro area, and this is when inflation rate about 10% is a very surprise for many people in the Euro area. And due to some concerns about the re-anchoring of inflation expectation in the Euro area. So that's why in our papers here, the aim of our paper is to understand which central bank communication strategy effectively anchor household inflation expectation in the pre-motivation is very important because in this period the inflation is high and many advanced economies, including Germany and the Euro area, they struggle with dealing with the persistently high inflation, and it is concerns about the anchoring of inflation in the population and how to manage inflation expectation. The central bank increasingly communicate directly with the general public, and they try to inform by different information, like providing inflation forecast or sharing their inflation target, policy interest, explanation, and the paper we just see that they provide some explanation about monetary policy and the new changes in the target of the central bank, for example. And the president of the ECB, Lagarde, also emphasized the importance of addressing inflation by stating fighting inflation is our mantra, our mission, our mandate. We know that the current situation is difficult for many people in the Euro area. So that's why we need to raise interest rates to time inflation. So it is a very bold statement from the ECB president. And this work is two parts, including two parts. The first part is about commitment of the ECB to fight inflation, right? They talk very strong, fighting inflation is our mantra, our mission, our mandate. And in the second part of what they emphasize about, they recognize the difficult situation at the moment, but they still have to raise interest rates to time inflation. So they also know explain how they can achieve the target of inflation, how they can stabilize inflation by increasing interest rate, even that is a very tough for many people in the Euro area. But this statement talking about both the commitment and explanation for their action, right? And they recognize the difficulties, but they try and commit to control inflation. And this statement is directly from the TV show. It's conducted also on October 21st, 2022. So at the peak of the inflation rate in the Euro area at 10.6%, nearly 11%. And President Lagarde here made that statement in the TV show. And this statement also posted on Twitter and now it's X in social media, and the same statement here. This is our mantra, our mission, and our mandate to fight inflation. And this to make sure that the information we provide is the real and the truth information from the president of the ECB. So our research question here, we want to see which communication strategies where the quantitative or neutral information compared with the qualitative commitment or combination of both quantitative information with the commitment from the central bank, which communication strategy effectively and household inflation expectation in times of high inflation, and whether the information treatment and strategies here it have similar effect across different demographic characteristics like low job and high job with ECB or high financial literacy and low financial literacy. So in this paper, first we need to measure the anchoring of inflation expectation, right? So yesterday we looked at the correlation between the short-term inflation expectation with the long-term inflation expectation to see the anchoring level of inflation expectation. But in this way, in this paper, we use another method, but also more robust method regarding to the measurement of the distance of medium-term inflation expectation from the 2% inflation target. So if the expectation is very far from the target of 2%, for example, they expect inflation at 6% or 7%, for example, it means that the anchoring of inflation expectation is very low, right? So we compare with the target of the central bank at 2%. So we take the distance of the medium run expectation from the 2% inflation target. And not only about the high inflation expectation, but also very low inflation expectation also implies the anchoring of inflation expectation because at the symmetric inflation target, the ECB now they emphasize both above and below inflation of 2% also is undesirable, right? So minus 1% expectation also signals a low level of re-anchoring inflation expectation. So that's why we take the distance of the medium run expectation from 2% inflation target. And the medium run here, if we refer to about 3 years ahead or 5 years ahead expectation. And also another indicator about the uncertainty of medium run expectation. So it's not only about the point forecast, but also how certain you are when you predict. For example, you also predict that about 3%, but in a very wide range from 1 to 7, for example. So it's a very wide range. Also implies that you are very uncertain and less anchoring with the target of 2%, right? Even that it's very close to target, but you are very little confident about their forecast and job prediction. It also a signal of that the level of the anchoring of inflation expectation is low, right? So we mentioned also distance and the uncertainty of medium run expectation, and we conduct an RCP survey experiment with various communication strategies by splitting the sample into 5 groups. So the control group received no information, okay? And the first group received the inflation forecast about future inflation. And the second group received information about inflation target. And the third group received statement of the commitment at receipt at the beginning of the presentation about the present laggard or present ECB, statement about the commitment and how they can achieve the target of inflation target. And then we're going to combine different pieces of information like the forecast with commitment or inflation target plus with the commitment to see the impact of the combination different strategy like some quantitative statement with the quantitative forecast or quantitative target from the central bank. And everything here, all chicken here will come back to the control group without any information so that we can see the positive effect of the information chicken we provide. And this chicken reflects all the strategy from the central bank so far to communicate with the sample population by providing target or providing forecast or commitment or achieve target or some combination of this method, right? And then we evaluate the heterogeneity of the chicken effect across level of financial literacy and check the central bank along with other dimensions like education, income, and so on. But we focus on financial literacy and check the central bank because, as we know in the literature, that these two variables is the most important driver of household form inflation expectation. So the surveys here, we conduct an online survey and by BND Research Company, and the survey here conducted in February 2023. So during this time, inflation is high and still high in Germany, about 8% or nearly 89%. And our sample, we have 4,000 German consumers, and this is a representative sample in terms of estimated income and distribution in Germany. So the design of our experiment is quite straightforward. So in the first part, before we provide the information, we ask some questions about demographic, financial literacy. We have 3 questions to measure financial literacy, very similar to the questions that we learned from our cross-border survey data, and some knowledge about ECB. So we ask questions about whether they know about the target of ECB inflation or monetary policy, and then just ECB. So because as how much do you judge ECB in general, and rank from 1 to 10. And then we ask oil forecast for prior inflation expectation in 2025 and in 2027. So, and the survey we conducted point forecast question. And then we randomly split the sample into 5 groups or 6 groups, and we provide different information treatment. And in the next slide, I will show you exactly the working for the treatment. And then after providing the treatment, we ask questions about inflation expectation again, but this time we use another format. Different formats here. We ask about the minimum and maximum value of expected inflation, and we ask about the probability that inflation expectation will be higher than the midpoint between the reported minimum and maximum. So we ask about the max and the mean and the probability that inflation will be higher than the midpoint, mean, and max. Right? So this is another strategy to measure the weighted average of inflation expectation, and we also can measure the uncertainty as well, like weighted standard deviation, right? And it's much simpler compared with the density forecast question with a different mean that we learned from the New York Fed survey of consumer expectation or from ECB consumer expectation, right? And we find that this question is very easy for people to answer, and just the quality of the answer also very high, matches closely with the point forecast of inflation expectation. Yeah. So now going to the information treatments that we and the first treatment here, that is the inflation correlation with average inflation in the Eurozone in 2022 was 8.4%. So we informed about the current inflation rate, and then we provide the ECB expect average inflation in the Eurozone to be 6.3% in 2023 and 3.4% in 24 and 2.3% in 25. Okay, so in the next 3 years. Okay. Then second treatment, we provide a target of 2% in the medium term from the ECB. And the next treatment here, the ECB present statement, the same statement that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation. And then treatment number 4, we just combine treatment number 1 and number 2. Treatment number 1 with the statement here. And treatment number 5, we combine the target first with the statement. And treatment number 6, no treatment number 6, but we have control group without any further information, right? And now we can compare the different pieces of information on the information of inflation expectation. Okay? So what is the common thing from all the information you can provide here? What is the common? What are the common things? Can you see something? What is common and what's different? Exactly, that's a very good point. And so, with the same source of the information, right? For example, everything here is the ECB, and the ECB expect, and the ECB target, and the ECB president, right? And then this combination, so of course, is still about the ECB. And why it's important? Because here for professional forecast, but we also can use that not only the ECB forecast, but we can say about the professional forecaster, for example, right? But the thing here is that we're going to emphasize that everything is about ECB, so that we can compare the same sources of information. Otherwise, we will know whether those people that get ECB compared with professional forecaster in general, for example. So we will know whether the effect here is because of the expectation rate or forecast we provide, or because of the difference of the institution, like those professional forecaster or maybe some other institution or the ECB, right? So that's why we bring everything here and the ECB, right? So that is strictly that we can compare. And everything here, we also mention that whether it's from the show whether it's from the newspaper, right? Because it's good both type of information. Because in the literature we know that the source of the information is important, right? Whether it's from USA Today or Washington Post, or whether it comes directly from the monetary policy statement, also have a different impact on how people form expectation. So just the information is also important. So that's why we don't provide simple information here, but acting about the ECB, so that we can compare the magnitude effect. And the point here is that, and the aim here is that we want to see whether forecast or target or qualitative statement here is important, and how important they are when the people form expectation, right? So now it's a comparable because it's the same source of the information. And what's the difference? The difference is that for number one, we talk about the number, the quantitative or the numerical information about the current interest rate and the projection. And number two, we talk about the target, the 2% also of quantitative and numerical information, right? And in the literature, we also find that this numerical information is important for the household to form expectation. But the next one here is the quantitative statement, without referring to any number or quantitative data, right? It just talk about the commitment that we choose outcome that is fighting inflation in the mandate for sure, right? And how we can achieve the target by in time of high inflation, they have to raise interest rate to time inflation to control inflation. So this is about the commitment and how they can control inflation in time of high inflation, right? But it's just qualitative statement. And then we have a next information, so then comparison of different pieces of information from qualitative and quantitative, so that we can compare the different effect of qualitative and quantitative statement, right? So can you explain which type of information is strongest in terms of managing inflation expectation from the population? Now, we have the posterior expectation as an inflation expectation, right? And now we want to compare the magnitude of the different information. So, which piece of information or which treatment do you think that have the strongest information?
I think the treatment 4. 5. Sorry. Yeah, 4.
4.
Yeah.
I think
1 and 3.
maybe 2 5 tigers, 2 second height.
2 and
2 and
5 is the most important. Yeah. So we think that 2 and 5, T2 and T5 is most important, and 1
and 3. So the
1
4.
and
Yeah. 1 and 3.
1
That is
and
the
3.
4.
1 and 3.
T4 is mean T4.
Yeah, T4.
T4 treatment 4.
I think
T4, yeah. T4 is the most important. And for one,
I also take like her.
that's the same with 1 or B.
Wait.
B, yeah. And treatment 1. And B,
I think that's the same with me.
same with B. And then 2.
Raise 5 to
2 plus 3.
yeah.
And 2, right? T2. Kết anh, yeah. 2 or 3. Yeah, it's important. Okay, so now we just look at the results, and then we can see which type of information is important, right? The different method. Just before we saw the results here, we have a question, right? So here is the posterior treatment, and we we have an absolute value here because we have the distance just before above or below our expectation in the distance. And with the prior limit, so we run the post limit on the prior limit, and then we have the information treatment here, right? And then we just want to see the magnitude of the eta here, the red coefficient here, and we also control for the demographic. And the second regression here, we look at the uncertainty of inflation expectation on also on the treatment. And for the prior uncertainty here, we don't have the measurement of uncertainty before the treatment. We just have about the point forecast, right? But we also create a dummy variables for those who the answer point forecast at a multiple of 5. So at the measurement of proxy, measurement for the uncertainty, right? So in this case, we still have a measurement of uncertainty, whether they are uncertain or not. Okay, so here is the result for 3 years ahead. The first column here is for the distance from 2%, and the second column here is for the uncertainty. And 3 years ahead, and then the next is 5 years ahead. Okay, and here is the prior period, whether it's in the levels or even in the uncertainty. And here we have achievement, and all things here, the achievement effect will be compared with the control group without any information. Okay, so now just focus on 3 years ahead, because 3 years ahead and 5 years ahead is quite similar. So just focus on 3 years ahead here. Now, what we can see, the impact of the information treatment on the anchoring of inflation expectation.
So Z4 is the most significant one minus 0.728.
Yeah. So we can see that the T4 here is the most important one. It's effective to anchor inflation expectation, but not much different from the T1 only. Because T1 only here already reduced by 0.7 percentage point. And this one and this one is insignificantly different because it's very close to each other. So we can say that the treatment number 1 here also very much effective. And when we add further statements from the ECB president here, the magnitude of the effect doesn't increase significantly, or we can say that is a quite similar effect between the T1 and T4.
Yeah.
But if we, and this one is consistent with the literature, right? Because if we provide the forecast and then we ask about the people forecast inflation in the future, so of course it will be very important and significant effect, right? So this one is consistent with the result. This one is a little bit surprising because we would expect that it should be larger, right? But it's almost the same. But now if we look at the target, only the target of 2%, it has no impact at all, right? So this is a surprising result because in the literature, the paper we seen yesterday or on Saturday, we find that if we provide the inflation target of 2% is important information for the people to change the predict about future inflation, especially in the US or any other country as well. But in this case, we do not find any significant effect. And why is the case?
Because it's the, I think because they lost the belief in the central bank already at that time. So what they need is just more information about their action, about the central bank action, and what they have done while the residents face with the high inflation, not just the target or any statement that mention about the current situation. So they need to have more here is the projection that they can have more belief in their central banks.
Yeah.
Not just the target or statement, because they heard about that many times and it's not at the beginning
Yeah.
at that time. So that's why I chose the T4 instead of only T1 or another, because I saw that if the statement combined with the projection, it might be better, because the projection just feel the information, but if having the statement from the central bank is more strongly. That's why I chose the T4. I guess the T4. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good guess, and actually it's a clear explanation for our results as well. So for the target here, it's different with the literature, because in the literature so far during the time we conducted survey, the literature just conducted the survey in time of low and stable inflation. So during that time, if we provide the target of 2%, it's a very important and specific belief about future inflation. But during the time of very high inflation, then everyone knows that inflation is far from target of 2%, right? And then we just talk about target, but then no impact at all. So the importance of the information is really depends on the context of the countries at the time of the area where we conduct the survey and we conduct the policy during that time, right? So in this case, just talking about target of 2%, no impact at all. And this is important, right? Because if we just apply some result from the previous periods and we believe that just talk about 2% target is important, for example, but during this time of high inflation or during the time of crisis, if we just talk about target only, then no impact at all. So that is an important result in our paper. On the other hand, if we talk about the commitment and also how we can achieve target but without any clear target about the target of 2% or some objective measurement of the target, also have no impact at all. Yeah, right? And when we combine the target with the present statement here, two insignificant effect, but when we combine these two together, it also becomes significant effect. So treatment number 5 here turned out to be important and significant. So what does it mean? It means that during the time of crisis, we need to talk not only about target, but also the commitment and how we can achieve the commitment. And on the other way around, we need to talk more about the commitment plus with the clear target that can improve the significance of the effect.
Yeah.
And the same thing for the uncertainty when they can be using the level of inflation rate to do the uncertainty and it's quite consistently observe the result. And now we look at some heterogeneity across different levels of financial literacy and trust in the central bank.
Can I ask, like,
Yeah.
to the table, like, I can see that sometimes there's also like the standard deviation for the coefficient is like
The same.
exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah, because when we run the regression here and here we have dummy variables and in the case that if the dummy variables standard deviation is similar. Is that because they have it here? Sorry, it's not it's just a categorical variables in not categorical, but it's dummy variables. So what's why standard deviation is quite similar to each other. Now we look at heterogeneity, the low financiality and the high financiality. So in this case, we can see a different picture. So for those low financiality, we can see that the effect is quite similar to the population that we just see. But for the high financiality, all the information we provide here is important for them to form expectation. So if they already financial knowledgeable. And now we just talk about target to remind them about target of 2%. They also can improve and they can update their believe.
Mm.
And even the statement only also important for those with high financial literacy as well. So this is a very different effect, right? And this also emphasize the role of education, especially financial education, on the topic of central bank communication. And when we look at the different effect regarding education, we will not find the low education and high financial education. Low education in general and high education in general, then no significant different effect, but only regarding to the financial knowledge, it makes a difference. So it means financial education is important for the central bank when they want to communicate with the general population. So if the central bank they have some strategy to improve the general knowledge about financial issues or some basic knowledge about financial issues, this still can improve the effectiveness of central bank communication and improve the monetary policy transmission as well. So this is an important implication from our papers to the religions about the role of financial education. And actually that's why in the advanced economies like in the Euro area or in the Federal Reserve in the US or many other central banks, they have a quick plan and they already work on the topic of financial education for the general public, and they have different channels to educate people about what does it mean about inflation, what does it mean about monetary policies, and the impact of central bank monetary policy on the level of inflation and the state of the economy. Right? Yeah. So that is the role of education, financial education on the effectiveness of the central bank communication. Very
So-
clear, right?
Yeah, but because I saw here, if we combine, if we compare the T1 and T4, so in here we can see that T1 have the bigger impact on.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
some
but
extent
then
it's
t-
a little
yeah.
bit, but it's not so much different.
Yeah. But any sense here, any question here, because is it statement reduced?
Yeah. Actually, the statement is reduced. Maybe
Yeah.
it makes people more confused
Yeah.
about the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because with low education, maybe sometimes more information is not good for them.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, and now if we look at the trust in the central bank, we also can see that first those with low trust in the ECB, the magnitude of the effect also quite similar with the population. But yeah, for those with high trust in the ECB, all the information now we provide to them also important. Yeah, like target or statement, also important factor for them to change the belief about the future inflation. So in the first part, we talk about the role of education. But in this part, we talk about the trust in the central bank, also important factor to improve the effectiveness of central bank communication. And now it's quite clear that the central bank not only need to improve the general knowledge about financial issues, but also improve trust of the people or public trust about their institution. Right? So, and we find that it's quite intuitive. If the people trust us, and then what we talk and what we present become more acceptable from the audience, right? Or from the other people. And this is important. And another result we find that it's very similar to trust in ECB, that is also can be classified into two groups about those who kind of trust in other people also have a similar effect on trust in ECB. So in they find that in the community is trustful, and the trusted community where they live, they also trust the information we provide as well. So and this also improves the effectiveness of central bank communication in general. So it's not only about the central bank communication, but also about the policy communication in general. So yeah, it's not only directly, not just in ECB, but just in the community where he lives.
Yeah.
Or we call that the social